Hello and welcome to Pro Home Inc.'s Housing Counselor's Corner, where each month we produce a short video discussing different topics such as home buying, housing counseling, and financial literacy. I am Paul Chase, the Managing Director for Pro Home Inc., along with video series executive producer Leslie Rhoda. And today we have a special guest, Christina Da Fonseca, who is the Executive Director of South Coast Fair Housing. Before we begin, I'd like to remind our viewers that the opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Pro Home Inc. Also, this program is for entertainment purposes only, and you should always consider contacting Pro Home directly at 508-824-2514 when it comes to your specific real estate and counseling needs. So today, Christina and I will be talking a little bit about South Coast Fair Housing, what the services are, a little bit about herself, and what the organization offers for the community. So welcome in, Christina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, we did a podcast not that long ago, but this is kind of like our first live thing together. So
yes.
Welcome to the studio.
Thanks.
Christina, let's start a little bit about you. What is your background?
So I am from the New Bedford area,
Okay.
and I am an attorney, and have been working on fair housing issues off and on, probably for about 15 or so years.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And you said you're based out of New Bedford, right?
Yes.
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 Now, does that mean that you, is it primarily the housing court in the, that area that you work with, or is it others as well?
So our service area
Sure.
includes all of Bristol and Plymouth counties in
Okay.
Massachusetts,
Okay.
the state of Rhode Island, and we are about to more officially expand our service area into the Cape and Islands in the coming months.
Okay.
We have an office location in New Bedford and one in Rhode Island, but most of our services are provided like remotely by phone or other communication, so we're not sort of limited by where our offices are located. And we actually don't practice in housing courts very often. Most of our work is focused on non-discriminate with the administrative agencies that investigate housing discrimination.
Okay, all right, sure. So then let's roll right into kind of like the organization itself. How long has the organization been around, and what are some of the primary services you offer for communities?
So our organization was formed just over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we are a nonprofit fair housing organization, and what that means is, our structure and the services that we offer are really modeled on other fair housing organizations across the country.
Okay.
And our mission is to eliminate housing discrimination and increase equal housing opportunities. And we do that through 3 different program areas. One is by educating folks specifically about their fair housing rights,
Okay.
which is essentially the non-discrimination laws that apply to housing.
Okay.
And our second program area includes our enforcement work. So that includes working with individuals who may have experienced housing discrimination,
Okay.
sometimes offering them direct legal representation in the pursuit of securing their rights under the fair housing laws. And then we also investigate potential housing discrimination instances, which includes something called fair housing testing, which is like secret shopping, but for housing discrimination.
Right. Yep.
And then, so that's kind of our enforcement work. And then we also do some policy advocacy work where we're working on staying engaged with local communities, understanding what barriers may be in place to fully achieving fair housing for everyone, and then kind of working on advocating for changes to policies so that more equitable housing opportunities are available across our service area.
Okay. And I'm assuming when you talk about advocacy, it's both on the municipal and the state level?
Yeah, yes. So we're doing some work. We've, one of the successes that we had was we worked with other organizations based in Rhode Island to add source of income as a protected class to the Rhode Island Fair Housing law. We're working on, but then we also work on things in the local communities, like, we're working with some folks in the New Bedford area about some policy issues there, and some other communities as well. So kind of runs, and sometimes we even look at individual policies of like individual housing authorities or housing complexes and kind of advocate for change, sort of separate and apart from any litigation that we may be engaging in.
And I was about to ask, certainly you probably get requests not only from individuals but from larger either landlords or housing authorities to maybe come in once in a while and say, hey, can you take a look at this policy, or we're interested in creating this type of policy and we'd like your expertise on that. So
Yes, we do sometimes get requests to review applications to make sure that there isn't anything overtly problematic in there, or to see sort of what our opinion is on what the forums look like. Those inquiries are actually some of my favorite, because it allows us to be proactive and work cooperatively with housing providers or other organizations so that we can reduce barriers to housing choice in a positive way.
So not only tenants, but landlords. And so if there was a landlord out there, it could be a mom and pop, or it could be someone that owns a few that has a question about fair housing, whatever the gamut is. They could feel free to call you and say, hey, I'm not sure about this and I'd like some information, and you'd be able to provide that for them.
Yeah. So we typically don't provide legal representation to housing providers unless perhaps they themselves have experienced housing discrimination, perhaps in purchasing another property, right? But we are available to provide, feedback on things, and we also offer workshops and trainings, and you can go right to our website and request one of those. And we typically, in most cases, we don't charge for attending any of our presentations.
Okay. Yeah, this similar to ProHome. We, our housing counseling agency is number one is there to educate first-time home buyers, and we have financial literacy programs, and then fair housing programs, and then we also do one-on-one counseling with landlords and tenants, or owners that may be at risk of foreclosures. We work with them as well, but we don't represent them, but we will help them, guide them in the right direction as to where they have to go, or if there are policies that someone is asking about because they're not sure of, we'll help in that respect. Like we'll offer our opinion, but we don't actually represent either. So it sounds like very similar.
Yeah, except our work is very narrowly focused on non-discrimination and sort of that perspective, right? And so even though we get many calls that are about various housing issues, we kind of try to focus. It is about fair housing. Right. But yes, in terms of giving information, our goal is to get as much information out there and to engage with folks, before a discriminatory practice actually takes place.
Sure. Are there other organizations in Massachusetts that are similar to yours? In other words, do you have like sister brother organizations, or that type of thing where you get together at different times and say, okay, well, what's happening? What are you seeing reoccurring in your area, or what's starting to rear its ugly head over here?
Yeah, actually, so so there's one other organization like ours in Massachusetts, and the same setup and the same the same structure.
Okay.
They are the Massachusetts Fair Housing Center, and they serve mostly Western and Central Massachusetts.
Sure.
But there are two other entities that also receive the same funding as we do. Most of our funding comes from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to do this work. And so there are really 4 organizations across Massachusetts that do the same work. It's just, and what has happened recently with this last year is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts developed a grant program to fund fair housing work for the first time through the Department of Housing and Community Development. And we, as a collective of 4 organizations, applied for and are receiving that funding. And that has really allowed us to work looking at issues on a statewide basis. And in that way, we do work together very closely now and try to, learn from each other, but then also try to address things on a statewide scale. And that funding is allowing us to really focus in on discrimination against individuals who are using housing vouchers to pay their rent. And that's the first time that we've really had funding to really focus on that issue.
Focus on that issue. Is that something that you're seeing more and more of?
We see discrimination against individuals with housing vouchers, like Section 8, for example, very, very, very frequently.
Okay.
It has been against the law in the Commonwealth for decades,
Sure.
But it has been a challenge to make sure that all property owners understand what the law is and that it's complied with. And so it is one of the most open forms of discrimination that we see on a regular basis.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about education, you talked about some counseling. If someone wants to reach out to you, if someone wants to reach out to your organization, what would be the best way to do that?
So we have a couple of options.
Okay.
We have our website, which is southcoastfairhousing.org.
Okay.
That has an intake form right on the website that can be completed, and it will be received by our intake team, who will then review it and contact you. And there's also contacting us by phone, and our phone number is 774-473-9994. And you can leave a message on our intake line that way. There's also, I believe there's also an email address directly on our website. But I really encourage folks to complete our intake form online, because that gets us really understanding a little bit about what's going on and before we call you, and it sometimes can save some time.
Great. Again, we appreciate, especially from Pro Home, who, our organization's steeped into the community as well. So we appreciate all the work that South Coast Fair Housing does. I would assume we will be working together again at some point, because there's a lot of natural fit there, and we're all looking for the same thing in the end, right? We're all looking for a community that can work together and house people the way they need to be housed, especially in this day and age with the affordable housing issues that we're seeing in Massachusetts. So thank you for coming on today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
This is, again, Christina DeFonseca. She's the Executive Director of South Coast Fair Housing. And if you need more information from us, you can contact us at Pro Home and online at www.prohomeinc.org for more in education, financial literacy programs, or for one-on-one counseling. You can also make an appointment with us at 508-824-2514. Again, we serve the greater Taunton and southeastern Massachusetts area. Have a good day.